Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a fantastic afternoon. In this episode of the Music Den, I'm going to be doing an album ranking. Yes, that's right. I'm going to be doing an album ranking of Guns N' Roses, as I mentioned in my previous video. Now, Guns N' Roses formed in '85 with members from two other groups, Hollywood Rose and LA Guns. Okay. They signed a deal with Geffen Records in 1986. They had made a name for themselves on the LA scene, music scene. They garnered at one point the attention of Paul Stanley and Kiss, and there was a word that he might be interested to produce their debut album. He saw them in concert at a local club and loved what he saw. Thought high energy, fantastic heavy rock. Um, Guns N' Roses are listed as a heavy metal band. I don't consider them heavy metal. I consider them a hard rock band. Um, I don't consider them to be heavy metal at all. But I digress. After meeting with the band and realizing the situation with the band, uh, Paul Stanley realized that this was not a good avenue to go down. So he backed away. They released their debut album in July, I believe it was July 21st, 1987, Appetite for Destruction. Now, at the time of the release, you had a bunch of bands out there, hard rock bands. You had Bon Jovi, you had, oh Lord, you had Poison, you had Cinderella, among others. Um, I believe Faster Pussycat was another one. But Appetite for Destruction was a complete left turn from what was going on. You had and you have other musicians and journalists to this day that will say that Appetite for Destruction was the total antithesis, as to what was happening on the music scene at that point. It was a complete left turn. Basically, at that point, anybody with a truckload of hairspray and makeup and a guitar could form a band and get a deal, get claim to play, etc. But Guns N' Roses, again, were the opposite of what was happening. In the band at the time, you have the original lineup was Axl Rose on vocals, Slash on lead guitar, Duff McKagan on bass, Izzy Stradlin on rhythm guitar, and Steven Adler on drums and percussion. They released Appetite for Destruction again in July of '87, and the rest is history. They had opened for people like the Stones, Aerosmith, what have you, and they just took off. They've also been in the news for more controversial situations. Axl Rose not showing up for gigs or showing up and then either refusing to go on or coming on singing two songs and then leaving due to throat issues, etc., picking fights, any number of things had happened. What I'm going to do is attempt to rank for you my favorite albums from GNR from 6 to 1. They only have 6 albums in their catalog, so it's not a vast catalog to rank. But near the top of the list, it was a little more difficult than than when I thought it would be. So here we go. All right. Um, Coming in at number 6 for me is Chinese Democracy. released in November of 2008. This album took 12 years, 12 years to record and release. In 96, the core members of the group Slash, Duff McKagan, Matt Sorum on drums, who had replaced Steven Adler, Gilby Clarke on rhythm guitar, who had replaced Izzy Stradlin, basically left the band. At one point, I do believe it was that Gilby Clarke was fired by Axl Rose. So they had all left the band, and they had signed over the name of Guns N' Roses to Axl Rose at his insistence. So he had total control over the name as to what he was going to do with the band, etc. Was this album worth 12 years? Wait to listen to it. No, it wasn't. It was okay for what it was. Did it break any ground musically? No, I really don't think so. It was produced by Axl Rose and Saram Costanzo. If I'm saying the first name right or wrong, I'm sorry. The other producers involved in the production of the album and pre-production were Roy Thomas Baker, most notably, who, as we all know, worked with Queen primarily, Nazareth, The Cars, Foreigner, and Axl Rose does give proper credit to Roy Thomas Baker for assisting him in the pre-production. The album is not memorable at all. I remember getting my copy from Walmart. The album at one point prior to release was taken off the release roster for Geffen Records, and Geffen had at one point suspended funding for the album because they were tired of putting in good money after bad for production costs. And they had issued a statement saying, after spending millions of dollars on production costs, we have decided to pull funding for this album, and if it is to be released, Axl Rose will have to pay for it on his own, which he did. The only song of any note is a track called Better, which is on the first side. But again, it's not memorable. So, coming in at number 5 is the Spaghetti Incident. Released in 94. This was when the band was basically imploding. It's a it's a cover. It's an album of covers. Sorry, and of punk covers from bands like New York Dolls, the Stooges. They do a version of "Since I Don't Have You," which is the lead-off song and single from the album, which I like. I mean, and through all this commenting that I'm doing, I gotta tell you, in terms of a guitar player, Slash is amazing. He is one of these musicians that lives and breathes through his guitar. His guitar is basically an extension of him. It's like a third limb. Okay. Jeff Skunk Baxter from the Doobie Brothers and Steely Dan had basically said the same thing on a music documentary in 1995, and just basically admires his playing. This album for me is not memorable. I'm not really a punk rock fan per se. This album also garnered mass criticism, due to the inclusion of the very last track on the album called Check Your Game Girl, which was written by Charles Manson. None other than Charles Manson. There is a 7-second gap between the the second to last song and the last song being Check Your Game Girl. The band, when they sent out a press release, did not even mention that this track was on the album. It garnered mass criticism for the inclusion. They subsequently donated proceeds from the sale of this album for this song to charities dealing with abuse, etc. One of the charities was the Doris Tate Fund that they donated money to. I don't think it's a memorable album. I do like Since I Don't Have You, but I don't think I haven't listened to it in years, and I don't plan to. So coming in at number 4 is GNR Lies. Released in 88. Half the album is live, the other half is studio. Guns N' Roses do tend to sort of court controversy. And at this point, it was almost on a daily basis. You know, the main single from this album is Patience. There are other songs on here. You're Crazy, One in a Million, which I will not repeat. But for me, Patience is the main thrust of the album. It's the main track that sells the album for me. It's a fantastic song. It was a complete departure from what they were doing musically, all acoustic, and just very memorable, melodic, simple, beautiful. And yeah, that's number 4. Coming in at number 3. 3 and 2 were doing a bit of a flip until I started doing this video. But I think I'm going to keep it this way. Number 3 is Use Your Illusion 2. Released September of 1991. This was the first full studio album since their previous album, Appetite for Destruction. They came out of the gate with a rock album, not one volume, but 2 of them. Full out rock album, heavy guitars, just melodic, going for the throat, memorable tracks, melodic songs, good catchy hooks. Again, for me, Slash really shines on these albums. With Use Your Illusion 2, the Blue Album, as I call it, starts off with Civil War, with also songs like Yesterday, Knocking on Heaven's Door, the Bob Dylan classic, which the version is a fantastic version. What else? You Could Be Mine from the Predator 2, Judgment Day soundtrack. Fantastic. The alternate version of Don't Cry, which I really don't listen to because I prefer the original. Apparently this album was held up because Axl wanted to add one more song to the album called My World, which is the last track of the album. It's a good album. Some people say it's a bit weaker than Use Your Illusion 1. I would have to agree. The other track of note is Get in the Ring, which is a scathing scathing critique of the music press, and I believe it was Bob Guccione Jr. And I mean, yeah, it's scathing, but it's a good track. It's very ass kicking and ass shaking, you know. So that's number 3. Coming in at number 2 is Use Your Illusion 1. These albums were released simultaneously in September, I believe it was September 15th or 17th, sorry, of 1991. This album for me is the more supreme one of the two, with songs like Right Next Door to Hell, Live and Let Die, The Garden of Eden, Back Off Bitch, November Rain, the 8-minute plus opus that for me is the centerpiece of this album. And to me, it's 8 minutes long, but you know what? It's amazing. It is an amazing melodic, layered track that is beautiful. Beautiful. So that's number 2. Coming in at number 1 is the debut, Appetite for Destruction. Released, as I said previously, July of 1987. This album, when it came out, you could not escape it. It was out there. It was in the consciousness. It was all over the radio. Welcome to the Jungle, when it came out, it was a monster hit. A monster hit. You had songs like Welcome to the Jungle, which also was on the soundtrack for the Clint Eastwood movie Deadpool, which is how I first heard of it, because it was like background music. But you had the title, not title track, you had the lead off track, Welcome to the Jungle, started off the album, and you just thought, what the hell is this? Just amazing hooks, amazing guitar work, fantastic heavy drums, rhythmic, just like amazing work. Other songs, Night Train, My Michelle, Rocket Queen, Sweet Child of Mine. I mean, my God, Sweet Child of Mine was a massive hit for the band. A massive hit for the band. Just crazy. Paradise City, as I believe it was one of the last singles for the album. Just crazy. And Axl Rose, with his vocal delivery at the time when it came out, his vocal delivery, the shrieking and the husky voice, and nobody sang like that at that point in time. So there was a complete change, a total flip from what was going on there musically on the scene. And other tracks of note on the album are Mr. Brownstone, which is talking about dealing with drug addiction. And Axl Rose, at one of the concerts, made a note or made a mention that there are certain people that were dancing too much with Mr. Brownstone, and they had better knock it off. And he was referring to people within the band, Slash, most notably, which Slash has said that he had never gotten over that, that sliding from Axl. But this album, again, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, and GNR Lies, and I believe the Spaghetti Incident, were produced by Mike Klink, who had taken over for Paul Stanley. But yeah, Appetite for Destruction. There was no, when I was doing the list, there was no, for me, there was no other choice for this for number one. So, and if you are interested, I wouldn't do it, but if you are interested, there is I believe it's still available. There is a massive box set available of both Appetite for Destruction and Use Your Illusions 1 and 2. Both range for CDs in the amount of $600. Too rich for me, but if you're interested, you can look it up on Amazon, on Discogs, on eBay, what have you. It has the I do believe that the Appetite for Destruction box set has the Live at the Ritz concert, and the Use Your Illusions has a Live in Tokyo concert, and included for video content. Sorry. So yeah, that is my list. I'll go through it again. Number 6, Chinese Democracy from 2008. Number 5, The Spaghetti Incident, 94. Number 4, GNR Lies from 88. Number 3, Use Your Illusions 2 from 91. Number 2, Use Your Illusions 1 from 91. And number 1, Appetite for Destruction from 87. So yeah, that's my list, ladies and gentlemen. Please, down below, down there, let me know what your list is. Do you like Guns N' Roses? Do you not like Guns N' Roses? Do you think that they're pretty much have had it? Were you ever a fan? What is your favorite album? So please let me know down there, and click like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content that I've got coming up. I did fail to mention this. I did see Guns N' Roses September 22nd, 1992 on the Use Your Illusions tour with Metallica. So you had Metallica, let me back up. You had Faith No More opening the show. You had Metallica coming out doing a 2.5-hour set. Then you had Guns N' Roses coming out and doing another 2-hour set. It was basically, all in total, 6.5 to 7 hours of fantastic music and memories. And luckily, Axl did get through the set of the show without having to run off stage or cancel anything or hold up anybody. Although he did come out about they did come out about an hour and a half late. But I digress. So that's it for now. Again, hope you guys are having a fantastic day and you're looking after yourselves and one another. And I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye for now.